Hi, this is Lauren Cheek from Lornicopia, and what I'm going to do on this video, this is more of a family-related video as opposed to like for everyone else, but you might learn something from this. I'm going back to Anthony Cheeke, who is an ancestor of mine who shows up in America. And if you go to the Moon Stuff webpage and you're a family member, you'll find him on there. And they usually say that his wife's name was Anthony. They also say that he died in America in Virginia. Well, the truth is, I found Anthony Cheeke's grave in a book, and he was buried in England, and he lived quite a bit longer than they say that he lived here. And if you pause this, you can kind of see what they're saying. But on both of these entrances, there's something that's possibly true, but then there's other misinformation because people are copying what they're hearing from someone else. So, for instance, Anthony Cheeke was the son of Thomas Cheeke, and that Thomas Cheeke was the Thomas Cheeke who worked as a guard of the tower and had the crown jewels stolen from him. uh, you know, so that's his infamy. But he ended up having a good life and everything. He's buried in the southeast corner of England. And when I find the document, I'll try to show it to you. But anyway, what it says is it says that he married Elizabeth Taylor. Okay, and that's probably true. And that he married Denise, Deborah Denise, born Elzoth. That is probably true too. And you'll notice in the second entry that they say where Anne was born, blah, 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 that Thomas Cheeke's wife was Anne Osborne. I would have to look that up because when I was doing the grave site, I didn't find the wife, but I found several family members in conjunction with Thomas. Anyway, long story short, Anne Osborne is probably a good choice because Anne Osborne would have been a relative of Sir John Cheeke, who would have been Thomas's great grandfather, um, by marriage friend. And in fact, Sir John Cheeke died at Osborne House in England. John Cheeke was imprisoned in the Tower twice because he supported Lady Jane Grey instead of Queen Mary. Anyway, long story short, so we're looking at this information and saying some of it's true, some of it's not. Like they've got the mother for Thomas Cheeke wrong because it's so many people to keep up with, and also because you have so many people repeating the same names over and over again. I'm going to try to continue this video. I'm using my phone because it uploads so fast as opposed to doing it at home on my computer, which takes 8 hours. Takes 5 minutes on the phone. So the quality is not good. The information is fantastic. Now, here's an example of using cousins and other people to pinpoint your ancestry. This is a visitation of Kent. I'm going to come over here real quick. It's under the book, Some Pedigrees from Visitation of Kent, 1663 to 1668. This would have been right around the colonial period when our ancestors, the Cheeks, were coming to America. They'd been here back and forth, and people were traveling between America and England quite often. So, you'd often do business, come for a couple of months, stay for a year or two, sell back, stay for a year or two in England, have property in both places. And this is what happens here. So this is a will of a guy named Sillyard, and Sillyard is married into the Cheeke family. Okay, you probably can read this. And it's down here under Hayes 26, the 20th of February, 1603. And it's giving the will, and it mentions Humphrey Cheeke, who is the daughter of Isabel Cheeke. Isabel Cheeke is, I'm pretty sure, married into the Sillyard family. Give me just a second to read it. But anyway, it mentions Anthony, Robert, John Cheeke, and other sons. So what it says is Joan Sillyard, Brasted widow, son John S. Gentleman lands in St. Sepulchre's, London. His children, godson William S., eldest son of John S. Humphrey Cheeke Gentleman, eldest son of my daughter Isabel Cheeke. Now, I'm assuming Isabel Cheeke is Isabel Silliard, okay, deceased, and his children. So Humphrey Cheeke's children are Anthony Cheeke, the eldest son, Robert, and John Cheeke, and other sons. See, so it leaves like that. There are other kids that aren't mentioned in the will, but they are given stuff. 5 children of my daughter, Martha Woodward, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so right here you have a mention of an Anthony that's descended through Humphrey. Humphrey is also a descendant of, I think it's Thomas, So they may have a little bit of confusion about who the ancestral line comes through because I'm confused. But right here in the document, it does say that Humphrey is the father of Anthony, and Anthony would be that Anthony, the time period's right, there aren't any other Anthonys really mentioned outside of context of the Cheeke family that are not quite well off and capable of having the money to come back and forth and own land here. Anyway, so there's one document. It also mentions the Silliard family. Here is another important document. This is a book. It says that Sir Thomas Cheeke, grandson of John Cheeke, and then it tells you when he died, who some of his kids were. See, now they have visitations, and visitations are only what they're for is they're for heraldry, and they're to make sure that people are not abusing the family crest. The family crest was kind of like a copyright, and it was acknowledged by the government, by the crown. You had to pay to have it, even if you inherited it as the first son and kept the same crest. You would bisect it with other prominent families that you married into, and something remaining or similar to or of or derived from the previous generation would be in your family crest. So these people all had coat of arms, family crest, blah, blah, blah. So this is in the history of Essex from earliest period to the present. And you can read this if you pause it. I hope it's clear enough. It shouldn't be too shaky. It says Thomas Cheeke, grandson of the Lord Sir Thomas Cheeke, preceptor and secretary of state to King Edward VI. That was who Sir John Cheeke was. He died, Thomas, on March 1659 on the 25th. He was succeeded by his eldest son, Robert, who dying without issue, this estate fell to his brother, Colonel Thomas Cheeke, governor of the Tower. That's who I was mentioning earlier, who should be the father or grandfather of Anthony. That should be the line that we're coming through. But like I said, I'm a little confused, but this seems to kind of be fitting together possibly like that. He died on April 13th, 1688, because I find Thomas Cheeke, I think it's Colonel Thomas Cheeke, in the crypt with Anthony. And like I said, that's in the southeastern part of England where they had lands and estates. And I have to find that document. I don't have it right at the tip of my tongue right now, but I'll try to get it and attach it to this video. Anyway, Edward Cheeke dying, the estate devolved to his only sister, Anne, relict of Sir Thomas Tipping of Whitfield. So what would happen is, if you died without issue, or it passed through another line, then it could devolve to a sister, or it could go down, by will to somebody else. So it properties didn't always go father to son. But anyway, what it says down here, it talks about his mansion, Sir Thomas Cheeke of Pergo, was a large ancient structure and contained within it a small chapel. Near the altar was a tomb on which the effigies of Sir John Grey, are. But then it also tells you down here who is buried there. And for Thomas Cheeke, Esquire, Lieutenant of the Tower, in the reigns of Charles II and Charles II and their son Edward Cheeke, aged 9 years old, also the daughter of Anne, Lady Tipping, whose tombstone was removed to Havering Chapel. The house was pulled down and the materials sold, and bodies of different families of Grey, Cheeke, and Archer that had been buried there are removed to Havering. So what I'm saying here is this might be the same chapel, but it's probably not, that I'm finding Thomas and Anthony in. But what's interesting about it is that there is a Thomas Cheeke and an Anthony Cheeke in a similar generation at the same time. And that's why I and a lot of people would be confused. But hopefully you'll help me sort this out too by looking at it, and you can comment on it to eliminate the lineage, but we know that we're coming from this lineage. I guess basically what I'm proving from this is that there was an Anthony Cheeke in England that existed. So our Anthony Cheeke is definitely somehow related through one branch or the other to the family of, it looks like Sir Thomas Cheeke, and coming down. And I'm going to end this as the first part of the video, and then I will upload it, and then I'll do the second little part of the video. And I'll label them as 1 and 2.